Hi! We're so glad you guys are here and back for another episode of What Is It Wednesday? We are really excited to be bringing this series to you, and as a viewer, we hope you're learning a lot about local history and about the objects at the Clinton County History Center. For today's episode, I'm Shelby, the director of the museum, and we are featuring our 1840s abolitionist quilts. And yes, I said 1840s, well over 100 years ago. This quilt is really a prized possession of our staffs and our entire museum. We value everything equally and we love all of our artifacts, but this quilt in particular tells a very interesting and historic story. Our 1840s abolitionist quilt was acquired in 1993. The accession number is 1993-026. So if you're familiar with previous episodes, we've talked about the value of an accession number and the kind of definition or context clues behind it. So we acquired it in 1993, and it was our 26th item of the year. This quilt really has some rich history behind it. It's actually a signature quilt, which means that each patch that you see behind me on here was signed by a different individual, would have been a woman at that time, that created the square, and then the squares were combined together to create a quilt. This quilt measures 71 inches by 71 inches, so it's much larger than the quilt we had seen before, but it is a perfect square. It's on display in our textile room inside of our Historic House Museum. So a little bit of more history on the quilt itself. Obviously 1840s, and was signed by members of the Society of the Friends or the Quakers. These individuals were from Clinton County, Ohio, so our hometown, as well as from Newport, Indiana. And despite the concerns of abolitionist Quakers, many Quakers did not feel like that they should take an active role in the emancipation of slaves during that time, but that all of the quilt signers that are listed here on our 1840s quilt, they were actually taking an active part in anti-slavery movements between 1840s and the 1850s. So that is always something interesting to point out as well. For their efforts, they were written out of meetings. So if you're not a Quaker or not familiar with that, that was actually where the church asked them to leave because they did not agree with what they were doing. And the quilt signers then joined a separatist movement in the 1840s called the Indiana Yearly Meeting of Anti-Slavery Friends. And I have my cheat sheet here, so hopefully you'll forgive me for looking down. The group consisted of about 2,000 friends, as they were referred to, and accounted for about 5% of the total number of Quakers residing in Indiana in the 1840s. The yearly meeting was comprised of 12 monthly meetings, or churches. So meetings is another definition for church in the Society of the Friends religion. And these meetings, of which the Newport monthly meeting was one of the most active, including involvement in the Underground Railroad system that aided several hundred slaves on their way to freedom. So if you remember me telling you, some of the signers and kind of manufacturers of this quilt were from Newport, Indiana, as well as Clinton County. The monthly meeting in Indiana comprised of 3 preparative meetings, one of which was in Clinton County. So they would come back and forth between the locations. In 1856, after much prayerful consideration, the anti-slavery yearly meeting disbanded as a separate organization and rejoined the mainstream Quaker movement. The Hadley family of Clinton County, Ohio, which you've probably heard that name very often, was active in the anti-slavery movement. So a local family was also taking part. They were also Quakers as well. Research has since revealed that the Ohio Hadleys were related to several of the quilt signers in Indiana through genealogy, and that Rebecca Harvey Hadley and her 3 daughters who signed the quilt are buried in the Springfield Friends Cemetery in Clinton County, Ohio, which is just outside of town if you're familiar with that. The Hadley family had a reputation in their community for excellent needlework, and that members of the Hadley, McCracken, Bailey, Coate, Rells, Bangham, and Cogshall families of Clinton County, Ohio, and Newport, Indiana, created this quilt that you see behind me. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little history lesson behind the quilt, and just the significance that it is over 100 years old and had a purposeful intention of making a statement about anti-slavery movements and abolition, and is on our own display here at the History Center, which just makes it even more special to us, and the significance of telling the story of the Society of the Friends, or the Quakers. So with that, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's kind of history lesson of What Is It Wednesday? And you got some more information behind this beautiful quilt that hangs on our wall. For more information about local history, please visit our website, clintoncountyhistory.org, or follow us on social media at Clinton County History. Stay tuned next week as we feature another object for What Is It Wednesday. Bye!